Welcome to today's Hinckley Forum. The Hinckley Institute of Politics is a nonpartisan institute here at the University of Utah. The Hinckley provides an array of transformative experiences for students through internships, forums, and classes. Hinckley forums seek to foster public discourse and civil debate on the most current and pressing issues, bringing in local, national, and international thought leaders. I want to give a thanks to the Sustainability Office, including Katie Valdez and Haley Roberts, who couldn't be here today, for their partnership in this event. I will turn it over to our moderator, Brady Dunn, to get us started.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us here today at the 2026 Earth Month panel, brought to you by the Office for Sustainability Education. Our 2026 theme for Earth Month is Sustainability is Always in Fashion. In the spirit of that theme, our discussion today will focus on fashion, sustainability, and climate justice. But before getting into it, I want to thank our partners at the Hinckley Institute of Politics for hosting us here today. And the 2026 Earth Month Committee for organizing and pulling off all of the other amazing events being put on throughout the course of this month. Lastly, I want to thank our event subcommittee for turning this event into a reality. So let's get a round of applause for all of our partners. As mentioned, my name is Brady Dunn, and I'll be your moderator this afternoon. I'm a junior here at the U studying international studies, political science, and history. I'm also a third-year intern at the Office for Sustainability Education, specifically working in student engagement. I've been a co-chair for the subcommittee organizing this panel alongside my other co-chair, Marley Dominguez, and our amazing team. With that said, let's introduce our panelists. Kay Roberts is originally from Northern Virginia and is a sophomore here at the U. She is currently working for Depop on the University of Utah campus, and her love for circular fashion started at a young age as she got into buying secondhand while also teaching herself how to upcycle. She's passionate about spreading the importance of sustainable shopping, especially in a world full of fast fashion. Drew Holton is here representing Beehive Threads, a small apparel brand founded in Salt Lake City in 2023. The brand started with a simple idea: creating clothing that actually represents the place that we live. Inspired by Utah's landscapes, local landmarks, and the outdoor culture that makes this state special, each design is created locally and printed on high-quality, heavyweight garments built to last. Beehive Threads focuses on small batch releases and designs that tell stories about Utah, from the Great Salt Lake to the mountains and wildlife that surround it. Kai Galt serves as a case coordinator in the Basic Needs Collective, a coordinated resource referral hub that helps educate and connect students to campus and community resources. Through their work, Kai supports students by assisting in identifying barriers to access and connecting folks with resources that can help fill in the gaps. This includes things like food access, legal assistance, affordable housing, health insurance, and financial assistance. A University of Utah alum, she earned her BS in Gender Studies. Kai is passionate about community action, wellness, and building connection with others. Born and raised in Utah, they reside in Salt Lake City with their partner and dog. Shar Leary serves as the Associate Director of Advocacy Services for the Center for Campus Wellness, where she oversees both the Victim Survivor Advocacy Program and the Basic Needs Collective. Her work focuses on expanding access to trauma-informed advocacy and essential resources that support students' well-being, safety, and academic success. Through the Basic Needs Collective, she leads a coordinated resource referral hub that connects students to essential supports, including financial assistance, housing resources, and other basic needs services. Let's get a round of applause for all of our panelists. And with that, we'll open it up to questions. So to start us out, what does sustainability mean to you? And anyone can jump in.
I can get us started. For me, sustainability means living in a way that supports the health and longevity of the planet, as well as all of the species that live here. It's about being in reciprocity with each other and with our ecosystem, and thinking about the future when making decisions in our livelihood.
I have a bit of a unique approach to this as the one who probably is running a clothing company here. And so For us, that means making products that are built to last, right? You don't want to make a shirt that's going to be worn once, twice, and then either it's going to fall apart on you or it's not interesting and you're not going to wear it anymore. And so again, for us, making products that are built to last and will last someone for years, not just a couple months or a season, is a really big part of what we do.
If no one else has anything else to add on that, I think we can move on. So how does fashion sustainability intersect with other realms of sustainability and with your own personal experiences in your respective fields?
I feel like there's so many sides to this question because there's so many sides of sustainability itself. Fashion, I feel like recently has turned into more of a take and waste model, buying, and then after a few wears, it ends up in the trash. Fashion production, cheap fashion production is responsible for a huge chunk of environmental harm, greenhouse gas emissions, as well as wastewater. So sustainability in fashion is kind of about shifting towards the other direction, using better materials, labor practices to make clothes that'll actually last.
Kind of echoing on that, I think that for sustainability, combating fast fashion is really important because, as you mentioned, a lot of the practices are sort of more focused on just producing a garment and getting it out and not really caring quite as much about what that means to the ones who are producing it or to the communities that are impacted by the production. And so as a designer, I think it's really important, and we have a lot of power in the sense of making something that's really interesting to wear, and it's something that's not going to get worn once or twice, but it's going to be something that someone's proud to wear for years to come. And so I think that that's really important as well.
I think because clothing is a basic need, it means that fashion is something we're going to be engaging with our entire lives. So since this is a product that we do create, consume, and dispose of, it becomes a sustainability question throughout our entire lives, and that's something we need to keep in mind when shopping or giving something away, finding a new home for something, and supporting brands that are making stuff that is going to last.
So I guess with that foundation laid, kind of what inequalities do you all think still exist in the space of sustainable fashion, and how should those issues be addressed?
I see three main sort of points. First is price barrier. A lot of higher, or not maybe not higher end, but clothes that are focused on sustainability have a higher cost of entry, whether it's because they're using higher quality materials that are going to last longer, or if it's just something that's sustainably sourced. Sometimes that costs more, and so that typically gets passed through the consumer. Additionally, there's an access barrier, and so not everyone has access to facilities or stores that sell secondhand products, and maybe that's an issue in terms of they have to buy something that's new and that might not last them quite as long. And then also the labor inequity. A lot of fast fashion only works because labor is underpaid and it's not super fair. And so I think that combating that means paying your workers fairly and making sure that you use companies or manufacturers that make sure that they obviously are sustainable and make sure that their workers and employees are compensated fairly as well.
I would agree with the access. For our office, one of the ways that we're approaching it is by having free thrifts available in different spaces on campus where not everyone has access to clothing, things like professional clothing for job interviews, regalia, different things that they need, even just joyful things, right? Like summer's coming up. Do you have access to summer clothing? Is that something you even have the privilege of spending money on? And so I appreciate that you brought up the access and your approaches with that. One of the ways that we do this is through our wellness exchange, and we have 5, almost 6, one opening in fall, different locations such as like the Peterson Heritage Center, and these are low barrier self-serve access to different wellness resources, and we consider that clothing is a wellness, it is a luxury, and it is also expected in our communities and at the university. You're expected to go to job interviews or to dress up for things, and not everyone has that same access. And so just really want to lean into like that also is, like Kai said, a basic need.
And I guess in recognizing those inequalities, how can we hold ourselves and the institutions that serve us accountable in terms of spreading fashion sustainability and making that more accessible?
I think we say a lot about our values with how we spend our dollar. Not everything, with issues this big, not everything is in our control to fix, but doing our best to consume responsibly is a great place to make a statement about accountability in fashion. So this can look a lot of different ways, but I think knowing when what you have is enough, using what you already have, getting creative in your closet, not participating in fast fashion or micro trends, and being thoughtful of things when you are ready to say goodbye to them, finding a good home for them, making sure that we are sharing as a community, because part of sustainability is when I thrive, you thrive, when you thrive, I thrive. And I think that plays a big part in clothing as well, in fashion.
I think for us, I would recommend that customers kind of take an approach before they buy a product and think to themselves how much they're actually going to wear that product. Make sure it's something that they can wear kind of across the seasons. Make sure that it's something that they can put together with an array of different outfits, not something that's only going to work with one specific outfit. I think brands can also be very honest and transparent with their manufacturing processes and sort of how they do stuff, and also what they don't do, to sort of try and educate the consumers. And I think that just making people aware is a really great starting point for that.
I also think a super important mindset going into when you're buying new clothes is, hey, am I going to wear this 30 times? Is this going to even last 30 wears? And that'll really help with overconsumption, just going in with that mindset.
I think another really important question that I've seen that is helpful is, when the day comes that I don't want or need this anymore, do I want to be responsible for its disposal? And that really helps frame how much you need a product. I think that there is a lot in the fashion industry about a sense of urgency, and I think we spend before we think. So taking time, if it feels like it's something you have to do right now, chances are you might not actually need or want it. So to sit on it for a few days, a few weeks, and that way you're making really thoughtful purchases that are going to last and going to be something that you utilize in your closet for a long time.
So if no one has anything else to add there, I think we can move on. How can we make sustainability in fashion more widely accepted by the industry? And are we already making progress in that realm?
I think it's important to make sustainability the default, not just a bonus. There's a lot of brands that'll do an eco-friendly collection, but instead of that, just having that integrated into all their pieces. So sustainability is the standard, not just a marketing angle.
At the university, I feel like we really lean into the community care model with our wellness exchange in particular. And one of the things is the motto is like, take what you need and give what you can. And it's been very cool to see like students, staff, faculty, all like showing up in the ways they can. Some people say, I don't really have anything to give, or I don't want to add to things. Can I come clean up the space and make it more accessible, like feeling like more comfortable when people come here? Students, like, I finished with this and I would like to give it to someone else. And just seeing that model perpetuate, that's been really impactful. So I really think that the community here can have just as much of an impact, even if it's not in the fashion industry.
I think that also bringing a new, I don't know what the right word is for it, but like making it more normal to not buy something to wear it once, but rewear your outfits and make sure that you're buying less and buying more thoughtfully, instead of just buying something because you think it's really cool that one time. And so, like you said earlier, think about the purchases that you're making for a day or two or a week or two, just to sort of sit on that idea, think about it, make sure you actually want it first before you go out and buy it, and then it's just going to sit in your closet, or you're going to throw it away a couple months later.
So, the fashion industry has had a huge impact on our planet and communities around the world. When considering the harmful impacts of the fashion industry, have you noticed these impacts affecting certain communities more than others? And how can that be addressed?
There's a couple different impacts that I see. One, obviously, and I think maybe the biggest, is the environmental impact. Waste and pollution often are pushed into maybe communities that might not have as much of a fighting chance to fight against that, and making sure that they have a voice and have some say in what they're actually becoming in their community and living as a part of, I think is really important. I think also there's an economic reality to it where if someone that doesn't have as much money or isn't in a position to spend quite as much money on clothes, they might be forced to buy something that's cheaper because they don't have access to something that's a higher end product. And so I think that giving them options to buy sustainably at a lower price point is really important as well. And then I also think, again, like I said earlier, paying your employees fair wages so that they can go then and improve their lives is really important as well.
Yeah, on top of that, when it comes to like paying employees low wages that come with the conditions that they're working in, it kind of turns into a cycle where people out there are benefiting from the cheap prices, but then others are weighing the cost on themselves. So finding a way to kind of combat that is super, super important.
I think a lot of communities are set up so that folks with privilege are often upwind of the immediate effects of unsustainable practices. And we can see this small scale, large scale. We can see it in our own valley with our west side getting like the brunt force of our air quality issues in Salt Lake. And globally, we see that the small island nations that contribute the least to our species' global footprint feel the effects of climate change the fastest and the most harsh. So this is something that needs to be forefront in all of these conversations is how are we combating this? How are we making sustainability accessible? How are we tailoring this to meet all sorts of different types of communities? Yeah, I don't have all of the answers for it, but I definitely know it needs to be forefront in the conversation.
I think echoing on that, like you said, a lot of times the people that contribute the least to these problems often feel the heaviest effects of them. And so just trying to figure out ways that we can combat that for people that are not making as much of an impact, but are feeling a lot of the impact that's being made.
Mm-hmm. I think just recognizing your own privilege in situations like this as well, and what is in your, because sometimes with issues that are this big, it feels kind of overwhelming to think about solutions, but it's a global problem and we're all responsible for solving it. So what is in your control? And I think like if you are someone that can afford a more sustainable brand and you have different privileges than other people, making sure that you are very responsible about how you're giving back and how you are finding a new home for stuff that you are ready to part with. And just keeping in mind what is in your control is helpful in solving these problems.
Little things really go a long way when it comes to that, even if it doesn't feel like you're making an impact, just doing what you can.
And I think on a lot of the points you all are touching on, more specifically, sustainable fashion in many cases tends to be more expensive, leading to communities not being able to have access to it. How can we bridge that gap? Or more broadly, how is sustainability and access related?
I'm going to bring it back again to our wellness exchange and the low barrier model here on campus of just knowing that there's need and knowing that people are busy here. We tend to live in our little bubbles. Like if you're at one college, you kind of stay in that area and may not have time, or you're working full time and going to school. You don't have time to go to some of the places. So really coordinating efforts and making removing those barriers, having free pop-up thrifts available. Just really, I think of it as like the wellness thing, and it's more if we can all work together to improve these layers of access with the clothing exchanges, shared resource spaces, having them easy and visible and stigma-free to access, then that really does help bridge that gap quite a bit locally.
I think the unfortunate reality of the situation is that a lot of times sustainable fashion does cost more upfront. But I like to think of it as kind of a cost per wear type of situation where if you buy a product that's more quality and it's going to last you longer, you get more wears out of that product. And so your cost per wear actually goes down and is oftentimes less on a higher quality product that you can wear for years than it is on something that you're going to wear for 6 months and it's either going to fall apart on you or whatever the case is. And so just sort of educating consumers on that aspect of it as well is really important.
Yeah, the term like one person's trash is another's treasure is so true. Keeping fashion circular in instances where you can't afford a sustainable brand, I feel like is a really easy way to bridge that gap. And I feel like we live in a really great place that has a lot of opportunity for shopping sustainably, which is really awesome.
So, learning about the ecological and climate impacts of the fashion industry can feel like such an overwhelming problem. What are some of the actions that are within our control at an individual or community level that we can take to help create change?
I think going back to some of the points that we've made earlier is you can buy less and you can wear those items that you bought more often, and so that you're not over consuming on clothes that you might or might not actually need. Communities can host a lot more, like you're saying, free thrifting events where there is access to people to come in and get apparel that's going to last them longer or just provide more use cases than just one or two outfits in your closet. And I think that supporting brands that also are sustainability focused is a really important aspect of that as well. If you build a local ecosystem in the community that you're in, it becomes a much easier sort of way to participate in it, and everyone sort of is educated as well, and everyone gets brought up in that sense. So.
Of having events where there's space to do clothing swaps or to repair clothing together and having intentional conversations while you're doing that about why you're doing it and sharing ideas and resources at the same time is something we hear is really helpful as well.
I think also just evaluating your relationship with clothing can be really helpful. I think oftentimes we think of there being something that is not a handmade item, where all clothing is operated by machines that are operated by people. All clothing is handmade. And something that I've found really helpful with myself with like adjusting my relationship with consuming clothing is learning to interact with it differently, learning how to mend, learning like how to crochet, to create items, to upcycle items. It allows you to go further with your fashion, but it also changes your relationship when you spend that level of care and attention with your clothing items. It becomes less disposable in your mind, and I think that can be a really helpful small step that we can all take that will change relationship with clothing and how we interact with fashion.
Yeah, like instead of buying something for an event you're only going to wear once, like borrow, I think is super important. Little changes like that make a huge difference. And it's also okay to be an outfit repeater. Like, choose better quality when you can and shop secondhand. It'll all start to make a difference.
I think also being very community minded. I think we live in a very individualistic culture and society, but you can go really far if you share closets with your friends or your siblings and you do like a monthly rotation, or I think being open to exploring an option where you are sharing clothing with your loved ones opens access for a lot of folks as well.
I think another interesting point that I don't see talked about a lot is buying things in person instead of buying them online. You get a lot of in-person benefits from buying clothing, whether it's feeling the actual material or not having to send it back and swap a size, that's obviously all going to be not quite as great for the environment because if you're shipping it back and forth, that's going to be trucks and planes and all that stuff. And so all of that contributes to the pollution and all the negative impacts that come along with that. So buying in person when you can is really important.
So I know that Kai already kind of hinted at this when it comes to the conversation of mending and creating your own clothing, but what recommendations do you all have for clothing that's damaged or too worn out to make it to the thrift store?
I think maybe repurposing what you're wearing that clothing for is good. So if it's not necessarily up to par or up to standard for a professional environment, you can wear it in a more casual sense, whether it's going to the gym or just around your house. You don't have to I don't know, I like to say you don't have to impress people that you live with. They're your friends, they're your family, whatever. And so they're not gonna care quite as much what you're wearing. And so if you don't feel like you can wear that item out or you don't think you can give it away in a thrift store, I think that wearing it just in a different sort of environment is really important. But also, like you said earlier, touching on learning how to mend, learning how to patch clothing, or repurposing it into another sort of situation, right? You could take, if there's a graphic on the shirt that you like, you can take it off and make it a patch or something and put it on something else, whether it's a quilt or a blanket or a bag or something like that you're making. And touching on another point that you made earlier, that kind of brings the personalization aspect to it, and it means that you're creating something that you can't just go out and buy. So.
Yeah, everyone has, sorry.
Oh, I've just really quick, that makes me think in our house, we make a lot of like dog chews and stuff out of the clothes that are no longer, like jeans can be really great to tie up and use with our puppy, and also rags, like just the common everyday uses. But as you said, that I had forgotten that we, and it's like, oh, can we do that again? Have it, and so it sparks some creativity and thought.
Yeah, I was just gonna say everyone has closet items in their closet that they tend to forget about, maybe don't wear as much, but you can really get creative with it. I remember learning in middle school, like in home ec class, how to do like basic stitches, and I still kind of take that with me today when it comes to like mending items, so I don't have to replace it. It's really a lot easier than you think, and it really does help.
I think also if the item is like damaged beyond repair, if it is a sustainable material like cotton or whatever, you can send it back to a recycling facility where they'll totally break down that item again and then they'll use it to make other products as well. And so that's a sort of way you can recycle it and it will just kind of get recreated into something else later on. So.
So I guess kind of away from the individual level, what kind of policy changes could help us mitigate the climate justice issues associated with the fashion industry and fast fashion trends?
I'm thinking a lot about what companies do with clothing that they don't sell. I think waste is a huge problem. And I worked in retail a very long time ago and saw some really horrendous practices by clothing companies where if you're not selling it, you're throwing it away, but damage it first so no one comes and grabs it from your trash. So I think putting policies in place that prevent that, I think supporting policies where you're not producing before it's ordered can help mitigate waste. These are just a few things that are coming to mind. So,
I think also something that you see, and this is an example of like a very large scale version of this, but for like Super Bowl items or like World Series type of things, obviously there's shirts and hats and all of the apparel that's created for both teams, and a lot of times that doesn't always get recycled or sent to a community that needs it. And so in the past few years, we've seen those get sent over to communities that obviously maybe can't afford as maybe new items or whatever, but they get sent over as like a donation and people can just wear that item in a different community that's not going to care about any of the teams that are on the shirts, but they just need clothes. And so I think that's really important as well to sort of encourage that type of behavior.
And then if no one has any other thoughts on that issue, How can people who are into fashion continue to keep up on ever-changing trends while still remaining environmentally conscious?
I think that it's really important to focus on your personal style over trends, right? Like, it's one thing to just be a person that chases a bunch of trends and buys a bunch of new clothes for those trends, but if you can be comfortable in your own personal style and not always be so influenced by trends, that means you don't have to go buy a bunch of new stuff just because the trend changed. And maybe even repurposing some of the items that you already have to get closer to that trend if you do want to follow trends could be a way to do that as well. Just, again, switching out the outfits that you wear and recreating things based on what you already have in your closet is also really a good way to do that.
I think looking at what you have and what is close enough to what the look you were trying to achieve. And I appreciate you bringing in style over fashion. I think when we think of people that are truly doing it well, it's because they know themselves and have a sense of style and can make whatever is in their closet work. And obviously you have to build that up a little bit if that's something that you're interested in. But for me, like, the most inspiring outfits I see are in people that have been really creative with their clothing, and it's not something that I'm going to see on everybody at the same time. It's something that they've curated and put a lot of thought into and upcycled and made their own, and that is, I think a lot of that is more accessible than continuing on the purchase train of every new thing comes out requires a new item. It doesn't. There's enough that's already out there. So getting creative with what you have and what you have access to. Yeah.
Makes me think too how much there's some shame around not having the latest fashion or not being able to afford a certain brand or all of that. And so just how we can change how we're talking to each other and how we're lifting each other up when asking about someone's outfit you like, and if they are sharing that it's sustainable or that they've thrifted it or whatever it is, or the company that they purchased it from is sustainable, that information is shared and talked about, and we're reducing this shame around needing to be a certain way or have a certain number of clothing items and whatnot.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I've lived in a lot of different areas, and I've never been in a community like Salt Lake where thrifting is it is kind of the trend here. At least in a lot of places that I've been, it's really nice how we have thrift markets outside of the library, and I think it's stuff like that should be like the default and more of the standard, and I think it's cool how I see a lot of community here coming together when it comes to sustainable fashion.
Yeah.
I think that bringing pride to that is also a really good thing as well. And like you're saying, building people up for doing that, shopping sustainably, shopping secondhand, doing clothing swaps. I think that's also a really good way to get new items, like you were saying earlier, is swap with your friends, borrow some stuff from others' closets, and just, again, reinforcing that behavior is really important.
Just going to add back to professional clothing is also shifting the mindset of what is considered professional clothing. We get to dictate that and we can make change. I know just in my lifetime, I've seen the difference of what is expected and what is accepted, and even visible tattoos, right? That was not, when I entered the workforce, was not considered professional. And so we have a lot of voice in and setting the tone of what is professional, and that could be that professional is sustainable.
And I guess as just one last question to kind of wrap things up before we go to an open Q&A, what practical steps would you all emphasize the most that people take to practice sustainability in their purchasing habits, but also just in their general lives as it pertains to fashion?
I think going back to what we've been saying, make sure that you're buying something with the intent to wear it repeatedly, and hopefully not just 2 or 3 times, but 15, 20, 30, more than that times, because if you can do that, then you don't have to go out and buy new clothes at every season, and you can kind of rewear your outfits and switch up your outfits with everything that's in your closet. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah. I think sorry.
No, go.
Okay. A really small practical step that we touched on earlier is just sitting on it. don't purchase it immediately. There is no urgency. There's going to be another sale. They're doing this on purpose to get you to buy things without thinking first. So if there's something that you want, put it on a list on your phone. Come back to it a week. Come back to it in 2 weeks. Is this something that I still want? Or has it changed? I've seen that in my own life where I'm really hyper fixated on a certain item for like 1 week. I'm like, I need this now. And then the next week I'm like, no, I don't need that. I need something else. And so really just implementing that into my practice of any purchase that I need, I'm gonna wait because I don't think it's as urgent as I need, and I don't want to be spending money on things that I'm gonna wear once or like in theory, but it's gonna sit in my closet. I think that's a really helpful first step for folks.
Yeah, you read my mind.
Yeah.
Impulse buying, like I'm guilty of it. But seriously, if you write something down and just kind of go back to it in a few weeks, do I still really want this? You'll kind of realize that maybe you don't want it as much as you do. Yeah.
I think that'll go for it.
I'm sorry about that. How you shared how much people love thrifting in this community is like when you really want something, can you go look at a thrift store first for that item and find your version of it and make that trend your own by doing that? I really enjoy doing that personally.
Yeah, and I mean, I do work for Depop, but I also, like, growing up before I did work for Depop, being on the app, that was something I would do. I would be in a store and see an item I like and look it up on Depop, and most likely I could find a cooler version of it or the same version but cheaper, and that's a super great way to go about things too.
It also adds a level of pride
Yeah,
when you
for
have
sure.
like when you've put effort into finding a thing and you're like, oh, thanks, I thrifted this for this amount of money, or found something even cooler. When you get more creative about finding it secondhand or a little bit more thoughtful in your purchasing practices, I just find with those items I'm like really proud to where my relationship with them has changed.
I think that if you're going to buy new, look into the materials that the shirt or the whatever the garment is actually made of. Make sure it's not something that's going to just fall apart on you. Going back to that cost per wear type of thing, if it is going to be a little bit more of an expensive item, make sure you can wear it for years to come, and make sure that it's something that you actually feel like you're going to be able to put in your closet and pull out on a weekly or like twice a month, 3 times a month, hopefully more basis, just to be thoughtful and make just more informed purchases that way.
Yeah. I think also budgeting when you need something new, like taking your time to buy it instead of buying a cheaper version of it immediately, is going to help with that cost per wear and something that's going to last you a lot longer. So if it's not something that you can or want to thrift and it is a new purchase, like being very aware of the materials that are used, the company you're buying it from, and if it's an investment item for your wardrobe, take the time to set aside what you need to for as long as you need to get the item that's going to go further for you in your closet.
All right, if no one else has any points on that, I think we can open it up to an open Q&A if anyone has a question. I see a couple right here in the front.
We'll start.
Yes, hello. My name is Rachel, and I walked in a little bit late. But one of the, I think, important things that you guys pointed out, and I don't know if this has been brought up, right? But thrifting is like a very integral part of the Utah culture. But sort of kind of what we've seen is that makes thrifting become super expensive, sometimes more expensive than buying new, right? What would you say to sort of that, especially when sometimes when you're in a poor socioeconomic status, right, and you need new clothes, you can't always afford to find some of that sustainable stuff. How do you sort of change that where you can still be participating in this sort of thrift culture without having to pay some of these exorbitant prices?
Yeah, I'll just jump in really quick. I don't know if you heard about, for our office, the Center for Campus Wellness, we offer wellness exchange around that have low barrier self-serve free items. And so there's a thrift in several of those locations, and that's one of our ways to offset it, because I know just in the time that I've thrifted throughout my life, I've seen those prices go up, and it's been really hard. And knowing, I feel mixed about people getting their income through buying things at thrift and then selling them at a higher price as well. But here on campus, we're really trying to make the clothing accessible through having pop-up thrifts at different events, partnering with offices. Some of the offices we see here today, we bring the free thrift to really increase that access. Yeah.
Hello, sorry, I just wanted to follow up on that and ask, Kai and Sherry, you mentioned being able to like donate, like obviously like the kind of take what you can, leave what, support what you can in that way. And so how do we go about donating clothes to the Basic Needs Collective and Wellness Exchange? Like what's that process look like? And then if you all can share maybe where are some of the locations where you have these places, just because I've seen maybe one or two, which is like Basic Needs Collective and PHC, but I'm curious just to see what are the other locations that you all have kind of placed them in.
Yeah, we can tag team it. I did leave some little flyers on the table over there if you also would like to have a list. I don't know if it would be helpful to share with your friends and community, but we do have at the Peterson Heritage Center, we have a small offering for dental students at the School of Dentistry. We also have EHSEB, the Health Sciences. There's a food pantry there. Not the thrift yet, it's in progress. Coming soon at the Sunnyside Apartments. At our Basic Needs Collective in the Union basement next to the food pantry. We have a thrift there. We also have one in the Student Services building in our Wellness Hub on the 3rd floor. So if you have counseling, go to the Counseling Center. It's in that building. The Center for Disability and Access. The Wellness Hub is right behind their front desk. And that's where our Center for Campus Wellness desk is. So there's some different small offerings. Am I missing one? I feel like I might be missing.
I don't think so. They're all listed on the flyers back there. That's helpful information. And we have donation bins at all of these locations, so you can drop off stuff while you're visiting. If you have a larger donation, our email is on our website, and you can just coordinate with us a drop off. But yeah, I think that's a really helpful way to make it accessible. And I think also just coming back to this first question, when it becomes a trend and less sustainable practice, if we're hiking up the prices, let's be thoughtful about what thrift stores we are supporting and where we are donating our clothes. It says a lot about making thrift accessible. Yeah.
Is there any more questions?
What is your guys' favorite thrift store here in Utah?
That's really hard. I love all the ones on 9th and 9th. And just walk down and just go to them all. They're all pretty good.
I'm biased, but I'm going to say the ones that we offer here with our Wellness Exchange. but I historically have always loved Savers and different things, but unfortunately the prices are going up. But that's always been one of my favorite. I like the Goodwill on 9th and 45th. There's some good finds, but it's changed a lot. So
I'll agree. It's hard to see now. Thrift stores are filled with fast fashion too. And on top of that, the prices are a lot higher than they used to be. Because I normally would say Goodwill is like my spot, but it's definitely changed. Uptown Cheapsteak is really good because you're donating and then also buying. It's like a big circle, which I think is really great.
Yeah. I think maybe a different approach to this as well is I like to go to farmers markets and shop with like booths that are like local and individual people instead of big chains or big stores. I tend to find that their prices are typically a little bit lower than the thrift stores. They don't have as much overhead, and so they don't have to charge as much for that type of an item. So.
So earlier it was mentioned that, oftentimes poor people don't have it to do, to buy sustainable fashion, right? And so you have to depend on people who do have it within their capabilities to purchase, reusable clothing, to, participate in thrifting and all of that. How do you make these people care about it when it's, so much easier to just, buy fast fashion, or so much easier to just spend your money on kind of whatever? How do you convince the people who it's not really in their, greatest interest to, be more conscious of what they're purchasing?
I think education is a really big part of that, and so we all can do our part in that, and just sort of, again, for us as a brand, like being very transparent about what we make, how we make it, and everything like that is really important, and it sort of builds trust with our customers, and they can sort of understand maybe more why we have the prices that we have, and we also try to offer a lower price point than a lot of our other people in the area to serve those maybe lesser fortunate communities.
I think with a lot of times, if it doesn't impact us, we don't think about it, right? And so that's like, I will say for the campus model, a lot of times we do all this outreach about our services, including these different access to different resources, and people say, I didn't know you exist, but they've heard it, but it didn't matter at that moment. And I would say we hear that from staff and faculty here a lot. Oh, I had a student who mentioned this came up recently, and then they inform themselves. And so a lot of it is like that piece, that like, what is it that connects you to it? And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, that you all are here, you know that, but how do we get it to matter to them? And then once they do, they are donating their like nice professional clothing, or if they had a family member who graduated last year, they're saying, do you have a need for robes for undergraduate or things like that? And then it perpetuates and helps others.
I think in addition to that, I think we mentioned this earlier, but making sustainability cool. I think within our own spheres of influence, making sure we are very vocal about fast fashion not being cool and participating in unsustainable practices that do harm marginalized communities is not cool. And I think for lots of folks, education can go far away or a long way, and that is ideal. With people that it's not going to influence, it might just be a matter of making your stand known on what you find cool and what you find valuable, so that they can really sit with their practice as well.
I think another important thing to sort of mention is a lot of customers that we have find our stuff initially in thrift stores or secondhand used markets, and then they'll like the quality of it so much, and they like how it is built to last, I guess. And so shopping with brands that you know are going to be sustainable and make clothing that's going to last you a very long time is really important. And then also educating your friends and people that are in your circle about that as well. And just telling them the importance of, hey, don't buy fast fashion because it's not as sustainable. Go buy things that are more sustainably made, that are gonna last you longer. And everyone can do their own part in that by just telling the people that are in their community as well. So.
Yeah, I know we kind of talked about this earlier, but making sustainability the standard, not a bonus. I think it's important for sustainable brands to be as vocal as they can about like the benefits, because I think that'll also help people who aren't as aware. Oh, this brand is doing super great.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And I'm gonna grab a couple of those flyers. I feel like I should know this. Like I know too, but I'm like I want to know, the more specific.
Something to give. And
Yeah.
Anytime we have like any marketing that we help or like
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking, I'm like
I was gonna ask, how did you get like involved with like the
Great.
J-pop
That's why I'm like, if I could
ambassador